Andrew Montgomery has a question. Sure, I'll answer your question, Andrew Montgomery. The three-body problem is about to hit the big screen twice. I think Netflix is releasing the Chinese version of the three-body. No, somebody's releasing the Chinese version of the three-body problem now, and the Netflix version comes up in a couple of weeks. So there's two versions that are coming. It's often been thought of as unfilmable. If you had your wish at seeing an unfilmable story hit the screen, what would it be and who would direct? Oh, wow. I thought that was going in a different direction. An unfilmable story and who would direct. So let's be clear. I think one of the reasons that the three-body problem is considered unfilmable is because it's a huge story across the three books. There are dozens and dozens of characters. And there's a question later about books to movies, which I will answer in more detail around this, because I think the biggest issue with it being unfilmable is just that there's so much story in the novels. But I don't think there's anything in the novel. Okay, I mean, in the third book, they spend about 50 pages in the fourth dimension, literally describing to you what the fourth dimension feels like. But I feel like Christopher Nolan did that in Interstellar in a magnificent way. So I feel like there's not much in any of the story. Well, no, there's some really spectacularly weird stuff in the three-body problem. But just the Wall Facers is itself like a 10-part series. I know that's not a term that means anything if you haven't read the books, but the Wall Facers is an amazing part of the story. But unfilmable stories. You know, one of my favorite films from last year was Drive My Car, which is a filmed version of one of Murakami's short stories. And I love that film. It really, really floored me. Murakami, I'm gonna have to think about this answer because I don't have a ready answer at my disposal. When I think about the authors I love, you know, Neil Stephenson, Cryptonomicon should be, I mean, frankly, it is weird that almost none of Neil Stephenson's fiction has been committed to film. I'm right about that, right? Yeah. That's really weird. So I want to see any of Neil's books come to the screen. And if it's Neil Stephenson, honestly, James Cameron should be directing that. Like that is a confluence of the right director and the right writer. That's a lovely one. Okay, we got that. Okay, let's see here. Ian Rigby says, I'm currently watching The Martian, which is my favorite novel to movie adaptation due to how faithful they kept to the book, except the very end. I was wondering what novel to movie adaptation was your favorite and why? So I have two, and I'll start though by saying that the novel is a terrible thing to transfer to a movie. It's too much, in general, it's too much story. A novel is often comprised of way more story, just story beats, than you can fit into a film. A short story is much more of an ideal size of narrative to turn into a feature film. I have been saying this my whole life. A few years ago, I replicated Colonel Kurtz's dossier from Apocalypse Now. We covered this on the channel. We'll include a link in the description. And I made several of them, and one of them was for Francis Coppola. And through mutual acquaintance, I arranged to give it to him, and we had lunch together. It was a really, really awesome lunch. He didn't know who I was or what I did, but he agreed to spend an hour with me, giving him this thing, and he was incredibly gracious. And we talked about filmmaking, and he was like, he volunteered early on as we were talking. He was like, the novel is way too much story to make into a film. A short story is far more like, yeah. And I was like, can anyone hear this? I've been saying this my whole life, and I'm agreed with by the greatest filmmaker. So, short stories make better movies, and my favorite is Arrival. Denis Villeneuve's film starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner and Forrest Whitaker and a bunch of other amazing people. Arrival is based on a Ted Chiang story called Story of Your Life. It's such an amazing story. It's really beautiful. It's worth, I don't think Ted Chiang has actually written a novel. I think he only writes short stories. And if I, which is amazing. And the story of your life is the story of the movie Arrival. And there's one extra elaboration at the end of the story, which is, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It's worth watching the movie again and then reading the story. It's important to do those two together because then the final hit of the story gets you right in the solar plexus. It's awesome. Yeah, Arrival, still amazing. I just watched it a few months ago. The other one is The Maltese Falcon. And I know that's a novel, and I've just finished saying novels are too long to make into movies, but I mean, this is an American pulp fiction novel written by Dashiell Hammett in the 40s. And Maltese Falcon it's so important. Raymond Chandler wrote this wonderful, my other favorite detective fiction author, wrote this essay called The Simple Art of Murder, in which he talks about the framing of the hero of a pulp fiction novel. And in it, he talks about the progression of the crime novel. And he talks about the drawing room crimes of Agatha Christie. And then he gets past that to Hammett and says, Hammett gave murder back to the type of people that committed it. And I love that. And the gritty world that Hammett creates in Maltese Falcon is so perfectly transferred to the screen in John Huston's movie. It's astounding that it's John Huston's first movie. Famously, Huston was said to have handed the novel to his secretary and said, just type this up into a shooting script. I don't know that that's true or not, but a really wonderful day can be had reading The Maltese Falcon in the morning. Even if you read slowly, it's a 4 or 5 hour read. It's like 200 pages maybe, so I read it in about 90 minutes. And then watch the movie. It's fantastic. It is a great 1-2 punch because we think of the aspects of film noir now as tropes and homages, but it's lovely to see that style of filmmaking in its original unironic state because it has power. It has aesthetic power. It has dramatic power. Yeah, that's my absolute, those two are my favorite. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.